Lelester Illios was an only child to Ayana Illios, Anakin who raised Lelester in a small town called Millertown, situated in the southern west part of New Aingaldi. Lelester never knew his father, nor what he looked like for that matter. His mother never seemed to have any pictures of him around their house, and when questioned about it, she would become reserved and secretive about it. "I'll tell you when you're older," she would tell the young boy who had many questions for her growing up. Lelester was raised to be a good, well-rounded boy, and had been homeschooled by his mother, whereas the other children attended the Youth Academy of Learning. They may have sheltered the boy from the outside world, but he did not mind it too much if it meant spending time with his mother. She was the only thing he had in the world, and loved her dearly. She was heavily religious, choosing to teach the boy what it meant to be a devotee of the gods and what they stood for. She couldn't exactly tell what they were for, because the boy's comprehension had its limits, as bright as he was. She taught him the foundations of the world and what that meant, on how to be good and do good for the gods who were always watching. "Why do they do that?" questioned the boy, whilst he was helping her dry the dishes. "To protect us." His mother would simply say, smiling down at the boy. Her radiant blue eyes and sun-kissed hair wavered in her loose ponytail as the summer's breeze brisked through their open window. This image was instilled in the mind of Lelester long after the passing of his mother. She had suddenly fallen sick with an illness that the healers couldn't identify and cure. It was like a black darkness had consumed her body and slowly ate away at her flesh. At first it started with a mild case of a fever, then it would gradually worsen, as Lelester would notice his mother clutching in pain at her chest or the sudden outbreak of sweats. On the worst nights of his life, he could hear his mother screaming in agony within her room, as if she was suffocating in tremendous pain. Lelester hastened to her room to aid her, ultimately calling for help for his dying mother. The healers did all they could to keep her alive and cauterize the burning of her body. It was afflicted with a dark mark that smoothed the surface of the skin at the center of the eroding edges, like some sort of cursed map being formed before one's very eyes. It was unlike anything the healing practitioners had ever seen. There was nothing else they could do for the afflicted mother. She would soon pass away, succumbing to the lethal burn of her body and leaving her son in utter turmoil. He was devastated. Now at the age of an adolescent, Lelester was smart and old enough to question his faith in the gods. For the first time, he was conflicted and weighed with the question, why? Why would the gods allow such a crime to happen when all they have been but loyal and devoted to them? For days he prayed while his mother screamed in agony, fighting back the flickering flames of his trauma. Like the priests, he felt helpless, victim to ignorance and cursed with mortality. How helpless he was. Lelester would join the Guild Order of the Red Flame to hone his skills in combat and healing capabilities. Despite his conflicted conviction to the gods, Lelester believed that he could still do some good for the world. That he would find a cure for the horrid black illness that took his mother. During his studies, Lelester became a profound learner and astute academic. He excelled in his classes and far exceeded his peers when in the school of white magicka. Lelester would also learn that he had a knack for talking about the gods and the divine, how everything had a purpose in life. His thoughts would start to linger back to his mother. How was it that losing the most devoted was considered purposeful to them? Did they not hear his plea? Was he not faithful enough? These thoughts began to soil his outlook of the gods and their justification to let those worthy die. Were they not good enough? Why should death claim the lives of the ones who devote their lives serving the gods, just for their efforts to be rewarded with the burning grasp of Noctis? Noctis, a name he's only heard in books and tomes. He was the god of death personified, believed to have come from the god of corruption, Malakath. Seemed fitting for a being such as himself. A few years later, Lelester would become a pastor of the local church in his town. It was something his mother always wanted of him. "You have such a way with words. I'm sure the gods would be pleased with hearing you teach others their ways," she says to him as she lay bedridden and dying. How ironic it all seemed to Lelester now. He laughed at this the moment it struck him after a preaching ceremony when he was alone in his office, reflecting on his path. He didn't mean to, but his mind found its way thinking back to his mother during her last moments. She was always so optimistic. He wept that night and cursed the gods for their ignorance. Ignorance. How he hated the word. It was the same ignorance that killed his mother. That night, Leicester would make a vow to find a cure to the black burn, so that he may help others through his own means of trying to savour the souls of the living. If the gods would not do so, then he will. On the path to becoming a health practitioner along with his research of the black burn, he'd come across a Volcari named Arcus. Arcus had been also looking for a cure for the black burn, having heard rumours of such, and leading him to Leicester. He and Arcus would exchange notes on what they knew about the black burn and how it inflicted great damage to the body. They began to talk as if they were friends. Days went on with them, spending time studying rare cases of subjects at different locations during their travels. It was at this moment in time that Leicester began to like Arcus and confided in him his past and worries. How the black burn was personally involved with him with the passing of his mother. In return, Arcus relays to Leicester that he was a Volcari. Bewildered by this, Leicester questioned this due to his understanding of what a Volcari was and what that meant. But he would not look at Arcus differently and accept him for this. However, he began to wonder about the true identity of the black burn, that it could have been linked to corruption itself. With Arcus being directly linked to the god of corruption, what were his true motives? Tasked with this knowledge, Leicester began to confide within the gods once more. That perhaps he did not prove to them as well as himself that he was to truly be a knight of the light. He wanted to ascend amongst them, not to walk with them, but for answers. He wanted to be closer to them in a way like no one else has. He did not see himself as better than others, but worthy enough. When his diligence had not been answered a single once over, Leicester grew impatient, restless, angry. If the gods would not answer him, he would do the deed himself. Seeing the wicked go unpunished while the innocent perished was too much for him to bear. Too often would the wicked reject his notion to change their ways for the sake of the good. To save their lives was a given. To better understand where the black burn had come from, Leicester had to first understand what corruption actually was and how it affected mortals. To do this, he would turn to the use of black magicka, the school of corruption and best option to learn from. During his studies, he came across the concept of the soul and how it was imbued into every living creature on the planet, as well as the rocks and trees. How everything was connected to the One, and how everything was born of the One. It would later describe Yara's essence as the spirit. However, if one was imbued by the One, then certainly it can be extracted as well. Would this be the reason of death? Can a mortal remove one's soul by that means? The tomes he read questioned this theory and executed it into lessons and guides. One day, despite the imminent consequences for doing so, Leicester attempted to extract the soul of another. In doing so, he would commence a chain of events that would lead him to meeting Noctis, the god of death, for the first time. Noctis explained that he had stolen the soul of another, something that mortals were permissible from doing so, but he would not be there to punish Leicester, but rather inquire as to why he did so, having been curious over the young Min. Leicester explained that it was all within his reasons. Noctis admitted that mortals did not often steal the souls, for it was deemed rightful for the gods to smite them. However, the desperation and devotion behind the lad intrigued Noctis, who would welcome him as an agent of his covenant, the Revenant. To show his dedication and diligence for his cause to the Revenant, Leicester had marked his arms in black ink, showcasing the duality of Min. Leicester is a young adult that stands at the height of 5'6", and wears light-coloured formal clothing, embroidered with gold trims and decorative semming. He lives in the town called Millard Town, and is a prominent member of the Order of the Red Flame Guild, working as a high priest of the White Light branch. He has golden long hair and blue eyes, a common trait amongst his bloodline of Dovine blood. His gold-tinted wings spreads to a considerable wingspan, 2 heads wider than his shoulders. He wears a short blade sword as a weapon. often used to slay this wicked and condemn their souls. Rumours believe that Leicester is an agent of the Revenant and steals the souls of others within his sword.